Hey, welcome to a new week, everybody. March 11th, the Market Update Desk, hosted by Scott Riley, powered by Mortgage One. We've got another busy week coming up this week. We made it through the jobs data last week, and as we've talked about extensively on Friday with a breakdown of that, the huge adjustments December, January show that the BLS has a lot of imputed data that's not really accurate. And those revisions downward really did help the market on Friday, but we never did gain back what we lost from when those reports initially came out in January. So this week we have almost just as big of a week. We've got consumer inflation and producer inflation in the CPI and the PPI report. What we're kind of forecasting tomorrow is CPI. What we're kind of planning on is headline inflation is probably going to be flat. But we do expect to pick up about 0.2% on core inflation. So we're waiting to see on how that breaks out. One of the big factors within the CPI is the owner's equivalent rent, or OER. We spent a lot of time digging through some numbers, doing some analysis from the previous report in February, and that came out hotter than expected. The main culprit within the higher CPI was owner's equivalent rent. No one forecasted the number that was going to come out and how it impacted the total. Owner's equivalent rent affects about 30% of the overall shelter costs that are within CPI, which is a total of about 42% of the total inflationary calculation. So they made a structural change to owner's equivalent rent last month. What they did is they shifted more of the owner's equivalent rent from multifamily to single family. So that kind of skewed the numbers for what we would get. Also, we got a new panel. Every 6 months, they change panels on who's calculating the owner's equivalent rent. So that created some structural changes. The biggest thing with OER is it's imputed data, not true data. What they do is they ask the question, what would you rent your home for unfurnished without utilities? Everybody is going to have usually an upward prejudice with their value of what they get in rent. And most people, if you don't have an extensive skill set in real estate and property management, how are you coming up with a number? So owners are throwing numbers out there and BLS is taking it as fact. Now, if someone says we don't know, what they'll do is they'll ask, well, what do you think your home is worth? The respondent will give a number, and then BLS will reverse engineer, calculate what they think the rent would be based on that value. Now, the interesting thing also, there was a calculation change within another part of the owner's equivalent rent that if your home is a little bit older, they actually modified what you'd have in rent. So there's multiple structural changes that went on with owner's equivalent rent and the BLS. Now, last week, they actually hosted a forum on it to try to explain what they're doing. Now, if there was probably ever a portion of government that needs some more funding, I will tell you, it's probably the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, BLS. And I don't say that easily. Well, what happens is these numbers have huge effects on the market. The market is waiting for all these data points that the BLS reports on. They're drastically underfunded and understaffed. Probably need a little bit more money, especially because of the weighting that the markets give on this data. When we reverse calculated a couple things, the changes in owner equivalent rent, the weighting towards single family from multifamily, the changes in the panel, this probably overestimated inflation by between 1/10 and 1.5 last month. That would have made a huge difference on how the market interpreted that information. Now, we don't know if they're going to rechange any of this, so we might for the 6 months see a little bit higher weighting towards this owner equivalent rent than what we should for anywhere from the next 4 to 6 months as this panel works through. So that's what's going on behind the scenes today. We're getting ready for all the information coming this week. We had a couple buyers submit offers this weekend. Looks like we might have some good luck on that. Do us a favor, like, share, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We appreciate you taking the time. The Market Update Desk is your singular, original news source for market information in the West Michigan area. Give us a call, 616-293-2189. We'll help you out with your mortgage needs. Take care.